Corporate 911. I'm your host, Dr. Eileen Jason, President and CEO of Arctic Consulting. I specialize primarily in helping people become more aware of how they interact with others, or emotional intelligence. We'll talk more about that in this show and in future shows as well. Throughout my experiences in working with people from corporate America, I saw their struggles, particularly in the executive environment, or even all the way from management all the way down to employees, how they struggle with understanding how people interact with each other. The idea is to figure out those issues as well as along with other issues. The topic of the conversations we're going to have throughout these series is going to cover specific types of issues that my guests, my renowned guests, will have and have experienced in companies, in corporations. There's so much going on today. As you all know, there's a whirlwind of things that are happening. We'd like to tackle them in this Corporate 911 show, and we hope you all enjoy the information that we have and the information that we provide to each and every one of you. So that's the show. That's what we're doing. I'd like to introduce my two guests. They're renowned in their particular fields. I'd like to start to my left with Claudia Hawkins. Claudia is staff development, trainer, consultant, and speaker. Claudia is the owner of Ethics Training and Consulting, LLC. Her services expand to include customer service, diversity, team building, communications, and just recently ethics in social media. Welcome, Claudia.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. To my right is John Baldini. John founded Humareso. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Humareso.
Thank you. To strategize with companies, to develop plans, to manage talent, recruit for skills gaps, and influence a culture of enthusiastic buy-in. Humareso handles all factors and facets of employee engagement and business. Thank you both, and welcome Claudia and John to my show.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's get started. Claudia, from your business experience and working with people and companies, what do you find, especially in today's environment, being an issue, one of the top issues that companies are grappling with?
Well, so happened the name of my company gives you an indication, which is Ethics Training and Consulting. I think that is one of the major issues in the world today. Mm-hmm. We see it almost everywhere whenever you turn on the news, whether you're streaming it on your phone, on the internet, there is some story that's related to ethics. Right. It's a very simple message that I want to deliver to businesses, nonprofits, and churches, is that if you do the right thing, you will be successful.
Okay, good. How do you decide on ethics as a primary topic in the name of your business? How did you get to that?
Well, you know, after you become a certain age, you can look back and you see, how did I really get involved in this? And I can say from birth.
Okay.
Because my father was a minister. I grew up in a small town in South Carolina, and we were always told you have to do the right thing. You know, your father's a pastor. So it was being ingrained in me when I was growing up, and I just didn't realize.
Right.
So I went off to school, majored in accounting. I ended up working for the U.S. Treasury Department, Internal Revenue Service.
Okay.
And got there and saw a lot of different things. I was really surprised. Because I do believe I sort of led a sheltered life, and you come in and you see what taxpayers are doing on one side, and you see what your employer's doing on the other side. So it came to me when I retired that I really wanted to make a difference.
Good.
And I wanted to let people know you don't have to do the wrong thing in order to get ahead. It's not all about money.
The ends do not always justify the means.
Absolutely.
Good.
So,
yeah. Awesome. John, being in HR, obviously owning your own company, you know, what are your thoughts on ethics and, you know, how that stands?
Well, I believe in them.
Good.
That's number one. I mean, I think very much, you know, in some of the context that Claudia shared, we are in a time, in a world where there is a very slippery slope as to what ethical behavior is and isn't. There is I mean, to be very broad and maybe perhaps a little philosophical, there's a morality compass that has moved quite a bit over the last 40 years. And so you know, growing up as the daughter, not me, talking about Claudia, growing up as the daughter of a pastor came with certain expectations.
Absolutely.
Yes? And so what that might mean even for today, as the husband of a daughter of a pastor, as I am, it's different. And I think that obviously cannot help but impact the way the business community responds, the way in which they respond not only to the community that they serve, but even within their own walls and how they treat their staff. And so that pendulum swing is a very interesting spot right now, generationally.
And it's much more in focus today, I think, than
I
it has
definitely
been in a
think
long
so,
time.
yeah.
I don't deal with ethics per se, but you know, a lot of topics when we talk about ethics is the sexual harassment. You know, a lot of that is in the news today, and unfortunately, you know, or fortunately, depending on where you look at it, you know, people are speaking out more, of course, which is a good thing. You know, there are a lot of things coming out as a result of that. How would you deal with that? You know, or offered suggestions, or have you run into that in companies that you've worked with having issues with that sexual harassment?
Well, the first thing to reinforce is that the owner of the company, the director of the nonprofit, the pastor of the church, they have to set the tone. Just so happens today, the U.S. Olympic team's doctor is in the news, and it's not just a few people. I think it was more than 150. So this is something that just didn't start. It's been going on for a while. And when you hear of things, you can't just say, oh, it'll work itself out. This is a time where you really have to have courage to come forth, because you're really protecting those that can't protect themselves. And it's so important that employers, they need to protect their employees when they hear of something that's going on. They can't turn a blind eye. And sometimes they will need someone from the outside to come in, because it'll be better, it'll be more objective than to have someone within, let's say, the human resource department. Because the human resource department, they already know all the players. They know the managers. So when they deliver that type of training, it might be a little skewed. But when you bring in someone from the outside, I'm just telling you what is fact, what is truth.
And as a third party HR, I mean, you're that third party coming in as a, you know, so that as opposed to being ingrained into the company culture, are you finding that you're having to deal with that as well?
Oh, absolutely. Our organization very regularly is dealing with that at this point. Obviously, the news plays into that a lot, and so the you know, it's a very sensitive subject, right, for folks, because we all come from different backgrounds with different baggage and different censors about some of these things as well. And so, you know, you have certain examples that are, you know, egregious. You have the Harvey Weinsteins and the like, where it just is like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. But on the day-to-day, that level of almost absurdity, that, you know, the story, the number of people and its tales, it's just so much, it's hard to take. That's not necessarily the experience that folks are having in the workplace by and large. However, right, those initial engagements that are off-putting, unsettling, slightly, you know, off-center of what might be appropriate language. And again, in very many ways, kind of, again, to piggyback off of what Claudia said, you know, appropriate is a great word, because to whom? To whom? And sometimes we make allowances for that. Because we think because in certain areas this is okay, but here it's not okay. And that is starting to get us into trouble as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that, because I think with the Me Too movement, you know, a lot of people are afraid also to say stuff. You know, I've heard, well, I can't even joke around, you know.
Absolutely.
But the fact of the matter is absolutely you can joke around, but it's now coming to the forefront even more so, you know, I think than it ever has. And are you finding
what can you joke around about?
Right,
Right,
exactly.
it's also another part of it too. And one of the things that I often find myself saying to folks is, you have to know your audience. And we don't do a whole lot of development in knowing our audience. We think, this is me. You have to take me for who I am.
Right.
Because we have a whole lot of that attitude out there.
Yeah.
And you know, I might not be the best thing. I may need to work on one or two
Yeah.
things. So,
Yeah.
so the fact that you just want to say this is me, I don't think that absolves you of everything.
Yeah, and that's where emotional intelligence can come into play,
Oh,
and we'll
yeah.
segue into that in a little bit
Absolutely.
later. But yeah, I think before we go to a break, I know we have to get to a break, but just to sort of talk about it at a higher level, we could have this discussion all day long. Many shows. There's a lot to
Yes.
talk about. I think if we come back in 6 months, topics will be quite different. Sexual harassment, of course, but maybe the subject, the
Right.
detailed subject, might be a little bit different. But I really appreciate having this conversation because it really does need to be talked about.
Absolutely.
So, with that, we'll take a short break and we'll be back shortly. Hey, welcome back to Corporate 911. I'm Dr. Eileen Jason, and with me today, Claudia Hawkins and John Baldino. Before we took a break, we were actually talking about sexual harassment. Wanted to sort of go through a couple more final points as we talk through it. John, if you want to kind of lead us off a little bit more about what you're seeing, where you think it's going, where do you think we're going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what our work with organizations right now, a lot of the baseline work really is at first to say, this is not something you can avoid. Mm-hmm. And it is going to mean that some behaviors have to change, some conversations are going to have to change, and as comfortable as you think you are, you aren't.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's part of the fallacy.
Yeah.
You got to get out of that pattern. That's difficult for some organizations to handle, but you can't avoid it.
Yeah. And it gets into a little bit of the emotional intelligence, which is what I specialize in. Just become more aware of how you come across.
Absolutely.
I mean, you mentioned it earlier, where sometimes people get so caught up in their own their world, and they're focused on what they're doing and don't really pay attention to people. But if you're aware of people and really make it a point to become aware, you can tell when someone's uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
There's telltale signs. There's the look. There's sort of body language. Those types of things that. You just have to become more self-aware, and certainly that's a big issue today. Once you become more self-aware, and I certainly think you would agree, Claudia,
Absolutely.
that doing that with sexual harassment, just working out there and calling people like us, third parties, be more objective. I find that as well.
That will work. And what you need to see is that the name of the training might not be the issue, because some people want to call it diversity and inclusion. Some people are more at ease when it's called sensitivity training. And that's what it really is, but on both sides, being sensitive to the other person.
Yeah.
And just meeting people where they are, and not being afraid to meet someone that's different.
Yeah.
Because this world, the world is so small.
Yeah.
It is so small now.
It is.
And we should be trying to get to know all different types of people.
Absolutely.
Because they're different.
Yep.
They're going to come up with ideas we never thought of.
That's right.
Yep.
It's going to be very productive and very, very beneficial
Yep.
once we get over that stigma that they're different.
Yeah.
So they're not going to understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I'll just say, and I 100% agree with you, and it has to come from top down,
Absolutely.
right, and down to up, right? It has to sort of be that constant flow. I did a harassment training not that long ago, and the owner of the organization was very happy that this was happening, and got everyone into the room,
Awesome.
and then said, "Enjoy," and left.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Right? It
Don't need
gave
it.
a message.
Yeah,
It gave a
loud.
message.
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear.
Yep.
Yeah.
You all need it, but I don't.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Or do as I say, don't do as I do.
Right.
Yeah.
That
which is
doesn't work
unfortunate.
anymore
Right.
with this environment.
I agree.
It just doesn't
I agree.
work.
Correct.
Because this generation, the younger generation, they're totally different
Yes.
from the older generations.
Yeah.
We followed whatever was said. But this generation, they question, and we raised them to question.
Sure.
That's right.
And now that they're doing it, people are very offended
Yeah.
because they think it's like you're insulting
Oh,
me.
you shouldn't do that in this
I'm
environment.
a senior.
Yeah,
Right.
But if you believe what you truly believe, then you should be able to express it.
yeah.
Right.
And if you don't, then that might be an indication that something's wrong with your
Good
thought
point.
process.
Good point.
Great thought.
Yeah, and as we go along, I'd love to have both of you back, a couple of months down the road and see where we are with this Me Too movement. And,
Thank you.
Right?
and talk about what you're experiencing. Has it changed, with the start of this Me Too movement and all of that?
Yeah.
People hopefully are going to be more, willing to speak up at a sooner period as opposed to waiting, until it's too late. So, but thank you for that discussion. Let's talk about talent and hiring and finding good talent,
Yeah.
John, since that's what you do.
Yeah, I mean, that's, thank you. That's actually, it's in keeping with what we've been talking about anyway.
yeah.
Because so much of it is cultural.
Right.
It is about defining what the organization is about, not just what they say they're about, what's really going on. Because, as you look at the amount of time and effort it takes to find good
Oh
talent,
my goodness.
not just externally, although obviously it includes that,
Sure.
but even internally, how you're developing what you already have. That culture, that messaging, and it can't just be the mission that you have on the
Right.
foyer wall.
Right.
Please.
Yes.
Let's just,
Yeah.
can we take that down, right? It's just, that's not going, because people will walk by and then instead of inspiring, it becomes the mocking.
Yes.
Right? Because that isn't really what we're about.
Yeah, you're not doing it.
Right, right.
Yep.
And so we have to really do a lot of self-examination first before you're really going to set up some really strong external and internal talent management practices.
Yeah, are you finding the same thing with culture and with the talent?
Culture and in that same vein, values.
Yes.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
think we all
It
are
all
thinking the same
intertwines.
way.
Right.
But the CEO is demonstrating and has verbalized some values. But again, if it's written in the vision, if it's written in the mission, and they're not executing it, it has no value.
Correct.
It'll be a total turnaround.
Yep.
It'll be a waste.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so many younger people, again, they just don't want to work for money.
Yes, I was going to bring that up myself. Yeah,
They
finding
want
that.
to. They want to be proud of where they work.
Sure.
You know, you're bringing home a nice paycheck, but if it's always in the news about things that are going on there that are unscrupulous,
Yep.
that are even questionable,
Yeah.
then this younger generation, they would rather, even go out on their own. More and more of them are going out on their own.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And so you have a talent pipeline right now that is dry in some ways. And I don't necessarily mean because the candidates are no good. It's because the skills that are needed for some of the roles that are available are few and far between to find in certain folks.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we haven't done a great job in some ways cultivating those skill sets that we need to in the individuals. But at the same time, on the company side, we haven't done a great job of really defining those integrations to those skill sets
Right.
for talent.
Right.
We haven't put any pathing forward. If you've got someone in a position or in a role that they've been in for 3 years at your organization, and you haven't really taken the time to find out what are their competencies, I don't know what you're doing,
Right, right.
right? There's gold there,
Yeah.
so we've got to
Yeah.
get to it.
Yeah,
Dig.
and along those
Dig,
lines, right?
exactly right.
Exactly. A lot of people say, I'm hearing now that they will hire someone if they fit into the culture and train them to do. I mean, you're going to have the basic skills, of
Sure.
course, but for that particular
Yeah.
position, I'm
Yeah.
hearing companies would rather hire somebody that works well with other people, and it belongs with the culture, and show them exactly what they need to do for that
And it's
job.
funny that you say that because even in Humareso at our organization, our entry-level role is entry-level human resources administrator. And so often I find myself looking for, they don't have very much experience, if any, maybe just out of college.
Right.
But I'm looking for work ethic,
Yes.
Yes.
right? I'm looking for passion.
Yep.
I'm looking for attention to detail. And I can perhaps train in some of the other areas.
Exactly.
Right?
That's exactly right.
Right.
That's a big thing. And we
Right.
talk about millennials again. Their working environment is different. They want more
Absolutely.
flexibility. It's not that they don't get their work done; they just do it a little bit differently. So, that's
And
important to
I
recognize.
would, if I might, just to add in, I know that the millennial talk has been, for some folks, ad nauseum. We just keep hearing it so
Yes,
much,
I hear it.
right?
Yes,
right?
I'm
So
with
much
you.
and so much.
A lot of people.
And the reality is, some organizations have changed the external appearance of who they are put in a beer meister, put a ping pong table, did this, did that.
Right.
I have to tell you, Gen Z, who's coming right on their heels, actually some of the tip of it already coming into the workforce, they are not wired the same way that we have categorized millennials.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to say, let's think smart about our generational sort of stereotypes and instead think about the individual.
Yes.
Because that's who we hire.
Perfect.
And I will tell you, don't mind saying it, I'm 47 years old. I am not a millennial, but there are certain things about sort of the stereotype of millennials I appreciate.
Yes,
Yes, I
absolutely.
agree with
you.
You admire
feedback.
them
Yeah.
for certain things.
Right? Those things that we say. I like ping pong,
Yep.
if that's all it takes, right? I like that.
Exactly.
But I also like constant feedback. I also like corporate social responsibility. I also like these things that we've sort of
Exactly.
assigned to a group.
Right.
It goes across ages.
It works all, exactly, it works all ages. Well, I think we have one more break coming up, and we'll continue this discussion. So thank you.
Thanks.
Hi again, welcome back to our final piece of the segment, Corporate 911. Again, with me today is Claudia Hawkins and John Baldino. Before we left on the break, we were talking about hiring good talent, finding good talent, some of the things we need to do. I'd like to move on to a discussion about leadership and leadership skills that I'm sure we're all familiar in our business, run into one thing or another with leadership skills. Claudia, give us a little bit of what you're seeing, maybe some issues about leaders, what they're looking for, what they need to do in your work when you meet with companies.
When I meet with my clients, what I am looking to see is they understand their purpose, they're demonstrating their passion, and they're letting their employees know they care about them. Because anytime an employer will pay for outside training, that should be an indicator to an employee that my boss really cares about me. It's not just about me being here, they're giving me skills that I can take other places.
Yep.
So they're not selfish with their resources. And that's something I really like to see. And that they are inspiring their employees. For so long you would see some employers, they want to train their employees, they give them everything, but then they don't want them to go any higher. So there's a glass ceiling on some employees. But when an employee feels like my boss is training me not just for the next promotion here, he's training me for something maybe even outside. He or she, look, absolutely.
Gotta put that in.
She's training me for myself, that I can do good while I'm here, but who knows, I might be the manager of her next location because you trained me so well, you inspired me, you demonstrated your passion and your purpose so that I've got it now.
Yep, exactly.
And I want to take it, so I want to be a leader, and I want to be able to take that to my next set of employees.
Awesome.
Right.
Good. John, any issues with leadership skills? That's
Oh,
where
gosh.
you are finding?
It's another hour show at least, right?
I know.
I mean, I think that one of the things that, again, in terms of perhaps the climate that we're in right now, there's fear that leaders are really dealing with. They are afraid of what tomorrow may bring, and it isn't. You know, it used to be fear about, will I have enough supply?
Right.
Where will I get the next demand?
Yeah.
And not that those things have gone away per se. Am I still relevant? Technology, but also what crisis may come up now.
Right.
How responsible do I need to be for employees? You know, you talked about the gymnastics
Yeah.
trainer.
Right.
Today, you know, I think it was announced that the president of the
Yes.
University of
Yes,
Michigan,
she's resigning,
She
yes.
is resigning. You know, and
Fallout.
there's a lot of fallout, and if you're a leader, there's fear to that. The flip side of that is, I think as well, the skill set that leaders have to work on is, I don't want to say thick skin, but they have to be more prepared for
Yes.
what will come. It is not going to feel good all
point.
the time.
Yeah.
And you are a target. You know, I tell the story often that when I was a little kid, my grandparents on both sides would talk to me about being president. You know, they came from, my family's here from Italy, and they just thought it was, That was such an honor
Yes,
to become
absolutely.
president.
Of course.
I would never wish any of my children to be president of the United States.
It's a tough job.
And that's
Yeah.
such a sad shift generationally, because I wouldn't want my children to be beat up as
Yeah,
much as,
yeah.
and I don't care what your political persuasion is.
Right.
It happens on both sides of the aisle. It has nothing
Absolutely.
to do with party.
Yeah.
It's just a daily target.
it's-
And that's difficult. And if you're a leader in that kind of position, a CEO, even manager of a department, you know, the eyes are on you, and you
Yeah.
have to be really prepared to
Yeah.
deal with that.
Exactly. Well, thank you for that. As far as leadership skills, from my perspective, I'm going to bring it back to emotional intelligence. I know we're talking about this, but I really think it's important to have that understanding of what emotional intelligence is. And since John is wearing our Eagles green, go Eagles, for the
Mine's
Super
a little
Bowl.
green.
Yes, you have green.
Let's go.
I
Eagles
don't.
green.
Next time I will. I am going to talk about our Eagles, our team, our famous Philadelphia team. I was talking earlier with John, actually, and I found out recently, heard it myself, that Jeffrey Lurie, who is the owner of the Eagles, as we all know, was looking specifically to hire, after Chip Kelly's era, he was looking specifically to hire someone with emotional intelligence. Now, when I heard that, I jumped up and down because I was so pleased. You know, I pasted the article on my Facebook page, and I thought, this is great, this is great.
Absolutely.
But they espouse, you know, they believe in emotional intelligence. You know, this is what their belief is that got them to where they are today, and hopefully, you know, to win that Super Bowl.
Definitely.
I do. The article's great. You know, I can post it up on my website again if you'd like. But I'd really just like to read a little bit about, you know, Doug Peterson's take on emotional intelligence, if you would give me that opportunity right now. He says, I think that having the connection, having been in the locker room, having an understanding of the dynamic of what a team needs, what a team should feel, how we should practice, how we should play, when to take the pads off, when to put the pads back on. I think all of that is part of the emotional intelligence that we all, and I try to strive for, and to have with the guys. I think that relationship has gone a long way this season. So I think that's extremely insightful. I think it's great, and it's clearly working. So,
Yes.
so I appreciate that, and I think that's a great wrap-up for today's show. We talked about a lot.
lot.
Again, we could make this each topic, you know, several shows in and
Yes.
of itself. But as a closing, Claudia, if you wouldn't mind, give us maybe one sort of maybe helpful hint that you'd give to companies about ethics and what they can do, and then also please tell them how they can get in touch with you.
Okay. Well, thank you again for having me.
You're welcome.
And I do want to remind people that it's not just ethics that I do. I also do customer service. I do diversity, team building, go Eagles, team building, communication, and just recently I added ethics and social media. So for those that might be considering bringing in an outside trainer, I would be happy to work with you. I'm not just a person who is there just to train and to leave you alone. I come in, I find out what your issues are, and my training is customized just for you and your employees. And there is follow-up at the end. So Claudia Hawkins, Ethics Training and Consulting, and I can be found at www.claudiabhawkins.com.
Awesome, thank you. John, give a little words of wisdom for those folks looking to hire the
gosh.
right people, and where they can get in touch with you.
I mean, words of wisdom, you'll hear me say often if you spend any time with me, is highest and best use. Start looking at your people. What is their highest and best use? What do you have already? And take advantage of it, not in a mean way,
Right.
but an appropriate way, right, for their own uplift.
Sure, perfect.
So Humareso is a full-service HR consulting firm. We provide services ranging from administration and compliance up through training and development, all the way up to organizational design and development, executive coaching, leadership development, strategy, really, for your organization, and everything in between. If you need more information, you can find us at www.humareso.com.
And thank you, John. And you're also, I've neglected to mention, I do apologize, you're president of the Tri-State HRMA and member of the Garden State Council for SHRM.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you.
I will wrap it up by, again, tying all this into emotional intelligence. Eileen Jason from Arta Consulting. I do talk about emotional intelligence, but I also help assess emotional intelligence. It's all about becoming more self-aware. You know, get that awareness of how you interact with others so that you can make it a better workplace. Also do conflict resolution and all issue resolvement as well, work with millennials. So if you want to contact me, www.artaconsulting.com. And that wraps up the show. So thank you both. It was a great conversation.
Thank you.
Thank
and I
you,
look forward
Eileen.
to talking with you guys again.
Thanks.
Thanks.